Hello and welcome. This is View from the Top. I'm Modile Sharafa Yusuf, and I'm glad that you could join us today. The functions of the Nigeria Police are spelled out in the Police Act: crime prevention, detection and apprehension of offenders, preservation of law and order, and protection of life and property. Other functions are the enforcement of all laws and regulations enacted by the federal, state, and local governments, and performance of such military duties within or outside Nigeria when sanctioned by law. The critical role of the police force and what they do to keep the people safe are unfortunately often overshadowed by the less than salutary reputation of the police and the love-hate relationship between them and the people. Mr. Suleiman Abba is the 17th Inspector General of Police, and is the one currently saddled with the responsibility of repositioning the force. In his first exclusive interview, the Inspector General of Police joins me today, and I thank you very much. Thank you, IGP.
My pleasure to be with this.
Before we launch into our conversation, here's a brief biography. The new Inspector General was born in Jigawa State on March 22, 1958. He got a degree in history from the University of Jos and a degree in law from the University of Abuja. He later studied at the prestigious National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru. Mr. Abba rose rapidly through the ranks and served in several sensitive positions. He was once Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of welfare of the force, and was at one time ADC to former First Lady Mrs. Mariam Abacha. He also served in different state commands as Commissioner of Police. Before his appointment as Acting Inspector General of Police, Mr. Abba was AIG Zone 7. IGP, sir, since administration is a continuum, let me start with the immediate past administration of which you were also an integral part as an Inspector General of Police. On assumption of duty as IGP, your predecessor, MD Abubakar, said, and I quote, "Some policemen have compromised the very soul of our profession. Our respect is gone, and the Nigerian public has lost even the slightest confidence in the ability of the police to do any good thing." How far do you think the police have traveled down the road of redemption since he made those comments?
I am not sure that the statement meant to say that the police has lost the confidence of the general public completely. Maybe the aim then was perhaps to prepare ground for what was ahead of him. Maybe telling the public that the challenges are enormous. The relationship was perhaps required a lot of attention, and it also needed the support of the public, to correct the ills perhaps that were there. But remember, before that time, there were IGPs, and they had put in their best. They had made a lot of progress in that regard. I also want to believe that our partners, especially overseas, had also made a lot of contributions. A good example, of course, was the United States, when they supported the implementation of the principles of community policing. The United Kingdom, also in that regard, made a lot of contributions, and they are still doing it anyway, all with the aim of improving the relationship between the police and the residents that we, protect. So I think in just one clean slate, I don't think the aim was just to say that everything was wrong.
A lot of progress has obviously been made, and since you assumed office, you have emphasized the importance of community policing, what you just touched on now. But how can community policing succeed when the people are so suspicious of the police?
Well, I must tell you, if community policing succeeds, I think that's how I want to put it. If community policing succeeds, then most of us, perhaps distrust will be a thing of the past. But before then, I think we have to do a lot. And that's what we've been doing. My predecessors have done their best. But I would want to say that perhaps in recent time, this is the first time that the issue of attitude of a policeman to members of the public, to his job, attitude to work is addressed squarely. And I have said it before, this is one of the things that was observed even in attempts, to reform the police. But then it's not something that the government will say, police, you have to change your attitude. No, this is something that has to be done internally. We have to do it ourselves. And that's why I said one of the tools, in fact, the leading one that I'm using in repositioning the police is reorientation and attitudinal change. And of course, in that reorientation, it requires good relationship with members of the public, gaining the confidence of the members of the public, ensuring that the principles of community policy are brought to bear, are brought to the understanding of not only the police officers, but members of the public, so that a partnership that will have mutual benefit will emerge naturally.
You just touched on partnership between the police and the people. What would the public need to do to keep themselves safe, to help the police?
One of the most important things that must have to happen is that members of the public will have to accept the police itself, that these are their servants, and then make the resolve to work with these servants, all with the aim of achieving one goal, that is protecting their lives and protecting their property, ensuring that there is law and order. Now, one of the best way, of course, that perhaps is the easiest too, is that members of the public must have to accept the fact that whatever they see that will improve that protection of life and property, whatever they see that will enable maintenance of law and order, whatever they see there is a threat to any of those I just highlighted, should be reported to the police before they happen. That's the kind of partnership we look forward to. And where those things do happen, the society is so dynamic, the society is full of social activities, so there are bound to be one or two incidents of crime. Where they do happen, it still behoves on members of the public to give the police information on what they saw or what they had relating to that crime. That's the kind of partnership that one expects. And in doing all this, time is of the essence. Mm-hmm. Once we get to know on time, leave us with the responsibility of responding fast.
How easy is it to reintegrate policemen who are used to doing domestic duties and stuff into the rough and tumble of regular policing?
Policemen don't do domestic duties, except if you are talking about perhaps those that were employed to be cooks and stewards, then I can accept that. But policemen don't do domestic duties.
Maybe they don't report that. They're made to do that when they're protecting these VIPs.
Well, in protecting VIPs, I have read the police regulations very well. I have read the force orders. I have read the police instructions severally, and I have not seen where any policeman was directed to go and do domestic duty to anyone. If that policeman gets to do that, perhaps maybe he's doing maybe he's expressing some sense of maybe humility, I would say. A situation where somebody you are working with asks you to assist me here, and he assists. And that may be a matter of perhaps...
Getting the right police force starts with the recruitment of the right people. What are the qualities of a good policeman, and how will you work with the Police Service Commission to ensure that the right caliber of people get recruited?
Well, let me be frank with you. Normally, values are important at the point of entry, during the training, and after the training. Not too long ago, we know that leadership of communities contribute in selecting prospective police officers. Mm-hmm. And the yardstick is normally what kind of person are we giving the police? Is he someone with bad records? Is he someone that is promising or not? Now, issues of values now come in. And this is worldwide. There is no part of the world that policemen are recruited without consideration to values. And these values are those that we, come up with. Values that we see in our homes, values that are taught to us in the schools, values that are taught to us in the mosque and the churches. And it's always observed. No one has stopped the Nigeria police from going back to those considerations. And we will use those considerations, I assure you, to make sure that those coming in, at least during my time, issues of values are considered at the point of entry. The commission, of course, statutorily, the Police Service Commission is responsible for the appointment of police officers at the point of entry. But the actual recruitment itself is a professional activity. It's the police that is responsible for it, and we'll go ahead to do it, even in this exercise.
I recently spoke with the chairman of the Police Service Commission, and he said that going forward, only graduates would be admitted to be recruited into the police force
constables.
As constables.
Yes.
Does one have to be a degree holder to be a good policeman?
Now, not quite, but let me tell you what perhaps he was saying. I didn't listen to it, but I know in one of the reforms, we've had several police reform reports, not the reform itself. We have had several police reform reports, and in one of the reports, it was recommended that recruitment at constable level graduates should be considered. And the aim was, one, to improve the quality of policemen at the point of entry, one. Two, to make sure that those coming in are graduates who have, what it takes to be able to perform police duty as required by law. And I think it is still there. We have so many unemployed graduates. And coming in as a constable will not mean anything. They will not suffer any loss. You will come in on grade level, police salary scale level 8, just like your colleagues in other public sector. And the only thing perhaps that is happening now is that you will be growing gradually and reach where you are destined to reach in your career.
Inspector General of Police, we must take a break now. We ask you to please join us again after the break. Please stay with us.